guys some awesome slow cooker dump and go recipes. Y'all know I love fast and easy recipes. This one's gonna be easy, just dump and go. So I really hope that you guys like it. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is be making some Hawaiian chicken sandwiches. So to my crock pot, I'm just going to go ahead and lightly grease that. I'm going to put 3 chicken breasts at the very bottom of the crock pot. And then I'm going to put 1 cup of barbecue sauce right on top of that. I'm going to go ahead and kind of smear that all over my chicken so that the barbecue sauce is on all of the chicken nice and neat. You can use chicken thighs or breasts. It's kind of whatever your preference is. I have 20 ounces of pineapple chunks, and I did just go ahead and put all the juice in there. You don't have to do that if you kind of want more of like a thicker type of a sauce mixture, then just go ahead and drain off all of that juice. Mine came out a little bit more on the runny side, so it's kind of whatever your preference is. And then that is it. All I did was put the lid on, let this cook on a low heat for about 6 hours. This is what it came out to look like. It was delicious. It had a great sweetness to it because of the pineapples, and then the barbecue sauce made it super tangy. It was a great combination. I served this with some tater tots and a side salad, but like some baked beans would be even better. And then I drizzled just like a little bit of barbecue sauce on top of the chicken on the sandwich bun there. Awesome dinner. Okay, next we're going to do some balsamic roast in the crock pot. So I'm going to go ahead and put my carrots down first. I always like to put my carrots in first because I don't want them to be hard at all. So I want to make sure they get as much liquid as they possibly can, and that way they're nice and soft. I'm also going to put in this roast. This was a rump roast, which I don't really prefer that type of meat. It said chuck tender roast on it, but it definitely was not. We're also going to add some baby potatoes and some onions to it. I did about half of an onion. I also have this balsamic vinaigrette that I'm going to put in just about 1/3 of a cup, and then also 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar. And then I have about a tablespoon of minced garlic, 2 bay leaves, and then I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I put in about 1/2 cup of beef broth, but if you want to do closer to 2 cups, that's probably going to be about the right amount because I like a lot of liquid in my roast. That way it gets it nice and tender. So here I went ahead and placed it on high at 5.5 hours. That's usually what I do for my roast. I just find that that's kind of like the sweet spot when it comes to tender chuck roast. But since this was a rump roast, it wasn't as tender as what I would prefer. So definitely adding the more liquids to it and then having like a chuck tender roast, that's what's going to help make it super tender. Okay, and then I had some mac and cheese and corn on the side as well. And we poured some of that sauce right on top of the roast and ended up being really good. The flavor was on spot. It just wasn't as tender as what I had hoped for. All right, next we're going to be making some chicken and dumplings. So to my crock pot, I'm going to go ahead and lightly grease that, of course. I'm going to put in 2 large chicken breasts. You can put in like 3 small or medium ones, that's fine too. I topped it with 1/2 teaspoon of salt and then 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, also a whole teaspoon of parsley. And then we're going to put in 1/2 teaspoon of thyme and 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, and then 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then 2 bay leaves. I have a whole onion that I had diced up. I'm just going to put right on top of our chicken. I love the flavor that the onion gives in this meal, so I definitely want to add as much onion in as I possibly can. I went ahead and just made sure that that was right on top of the chicken. And then I have 2 cups of chicken broth that I went ahead and put in there. I didn't want to put it on top of the chicken, but I did want to put it in the crock pot. And then I have 1 can of cream of chicken soup. And then I'm just going to kind of top that and make sure it's kind of spreading out a little bit of everywhere. I kind of like that right on top of the chicken without taking off the seasonings. I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to let that cook on a low heat for about 6 hours. 1 hour before it's done cooking, I got some biscuit dough. You just need 1 can. And I'm just going to kind of use a rolling pin, just kind of smash it a little bit. That way I can kind of use my pizza cutter and make these into like small little pieces. I don't like big chunks in my chicken dumplings soup or anything that I'm using dumplings with. I really like the small, like bite-sized pieces. So once I have all of those biscuits how I want them, you want to make sure that you cut up all 8 of those pieces. And then to my crock pot, I'm just going to kind of use a meat smasher and get all of that chicken nice and shredded. And then once it's all shredded, you want to just kind of mix that together in with that sauce that's in the crock pot. Okay, now I have 2 cups of mixed vegetables. I'm just going to go ahead and give that a good stir. They are slightly frozen, but it's fine because we're going to let this cook for another hour, so they should thaw just fine. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take my biscuits. I'm just going to kind of place them in there kind of one by one because I want to make sure that there's a really good even layer just right on top. I'm not going to mix it in with all of that sauce and the chicken and everything. I just want to place these right on top. So that's what you see me doing here. It does take a little bit of time to kind of make sure that all the pieces aren't stuck together and that they're placed just right on top. Okay, you're going to let that cook for about 30 minutes to an hour. I think I did more like 45 minutes, so it kind of just depends on your crock pot. But you want to put that on high and let that cook for about 30 minutes to an hour. And then once that is done cooking, then you can make sure it's all mixed together properly. I actually put in just like a little bit more of like half and half because I didn't feel like it was super creamy. So I wanted to go ahead and do that. You don't see me doing that in the video, but if you want to add like a cup of heavy whipping cream or half and half, that's going to make it super creamy. This would be good with maybe some mashed potatoes. I thought maybe mashed potatoes would be good with this, but this was a delicious dinner. You guys will not regret making this. It's so hearty. It's so delicious. Next, we're going to be making some smothered pork chops. So to my crock pot, I'm going to go ahead and lightly grease that. I'm going to put in half of our pork chops. I have like 2 packages of pork chops that I'm going to be using because there's a lot of people in my family, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and put in half of it, and then we're going to kind of drizzle some ranch seasoning just right on top of that, probably about half of an ounce. And then I'm going to put in the rest of my pork chops. And then I'll put that ranch seasoning just right on top of that, about another half of an ounce. I have 1 can of cream of chicken soup we're going to put right on top of that. I also have 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. Now, if you guys want to mix that together first and then put that on top, that's fine too. I just kind of use a spoon to kind of smear it all over without like taking off any of that ranch seasoning. So it's whatever you guys prefer to do. I tend to go on the side of not as many dishes. And then I'm going to let that cook on a low heat for 6 hours, or you can cook this on high for 3 hours. Now that it's done cooking, there's plenty of sauce to kind of mix around. It's nice and juicy, nice and saucy, and that's kind of what we're looking for. I want to take this like sauce that we're going to be having. It's kind of like a gravy texture. I'm going to take that and I'm actually going to put that right on top of some rice. This is amazing with rice. It's also amazing with mashed potatoes. I love to do this with like some green beans and some rice, maybe like a biscuit or a roll on the side. That's just my favorite way of having this, or you don't have to have like the extra carbs either, but the sauce in this is great on the pork chops and it's amazing on the rice as well. I love a good cream of mushroom like sauce texture on rice. It is so good. My family loved the tenderness of the pork chops. They just overall really enjoyed this meal. Next, we're going to be making some queso chicken tacos, or you can make this as like nachos as well. We did like half and half. Half of it we did like the tacos, and then the other half we did nachos because we're kind of a split family, you guys. We like different things. So you're going to put 3 chicken breasts at the very bottom of your crock pot. You're going to put in about an ounce of taco seasoning and then a cup of chicken broth. I put in also 1 can of Rotel. With the juice, also 1 can of green chilies, just about a 4-ounce can. Go ahead and put that all in there. And then also we're gonna top it with some queso, like the whole thing, the whole small 8 ounce of queso. That's what you're gonna put in there. You're gonna let this cook on high for a couple hours, or you can do low for like 4 to 6 hours. You just wanna make sure that that chicken's nice and tender and cooked through. And then you get a meat masher, mash it all together, make sure all that chicken is nice and shredded. That's it. Mine came out a little bit more saucy. So if you don't put as much sauce, like if you drain your Rotel, it probably wouldn't be as saucy as mine is. But I'm telling you, we really enjoyed the nacho version of this. Just putting this over some chips and putting some sour cream and whatever type of toppings that you guys like. That one was a hit. But these are great as tacos as well. Such a family favorite. Next, we're going to be making some ribs. So now I'm going to go ahead and spray my crock pot. Beef ribs is not something I would typically make in the crock pot, but I'm telling you guys, these were fantastic. They were nice and tender. So I'm going to put 4 of these ribs just right into my crock pots. I'm trying to place them so that they'll fit perfectly. And then I have half a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of pepper that I'm just placing right on top of that. I also have just like a little bit of sugar, about half a teaspoon. And then I have 2 bay leaves. I also sprinkled in half a teaspoon of garlic salt. And then I have about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar I'm going to be putting in 2 cups of chicken broth. Going to place that right into my crock pot. Half a teaspoon of oregano right on top of the ribs. And then I have this like tomato bouillon that I'm going to be putting in there. I put about 1 teaspoon of that tomato bouillon. Then I have a little bit of liquid smoke. I'm just going to put in just a couple tablespoons. And then I have some Worcestershire sauce. And of course, you can just do what your little heart desires there. I'm going to put in about a whole onion. Just going to place that right on top of our ribs. I have about a tablespoon and a half of garlic, some minced garlic. I'm going to put the lid on and I'm going to let this cook on a low heat for 8 hours. And I think that's what the magic number is 8 hours on low, because these came out amazingly tender. These were surprisingly so delicious. Make sure you have enough broth to cover up all of those ribs, because you want to make sure that they're getting plenty of liquids. I'm also going to make a little bit of like a gravy, so I put in several tablespoons of cornstarch and just stirring that all together. You just want to stir it until it's nice and thick to whatever consistency that you want. And then I made some mashed potatoes and some corn and some broccoli on the side. Put that gravy right on top of the ribs and on top of the mashed potatoes. So good. The gravy gave it such wonderful flavor. These ribs were so tender, so delicious. Make it with any type of sides that you prefer. You guys, this one was a huge hit.
Thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. I love crockpot meals. I hope that you guys do too. Give me a big thumbs up and consider subscribing below if you haven't already. I'd love to see you here on my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all.